And you know, you can talk about windmills. They litter our country. The windmills are driving the whales crazy. They're a disaster. They're rusting, rotting, closed, falling down. They also want to go back, and they have already started that, to when you buy a faucet, no water comes out. It goes drip, drip, drip. So what happens? You're in the shower 10 times as long, you know. He wants all gas heaters out of your homes and apartments. He wants them to be replaced by essentially electric heaters. These people are crazy. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them.
Sounds like my shower head because I can't get a plumber up in Connecticut, but that's a different segment. Joining me now is Jackie DeAngelis, co-host of The Big Money Show right here on fabulous Fox Business, and Mark Simone, WOR radio show host and Hall of Famer, and Caroline Downey, staff writer at the National Review. How's your shower, Jackie? I don't want to get personal, you know what I mean? Just as an, you know, as a.
Well, I know it's going to be okay now.
It's just something to talk. I mean, what he's saying, though, is all these crazy things the Bidens have done have not and are not working. Yeah. And that includes they want to ban gas heaters. They won't let you turn on the water full steam. In fact, they try to cut off water. You can't take a shower. And then again, the other point he's making, it may sound kind of lefty, but it's not. There's a lot of legitimate conservationists that want to save whales. Windmills offshore are absolutely devastating to that. And anyway, you can't get rid of the windmills onshore. There's no place to put them. They rot and they rust.
So the narrative changes to suit them. If they want to go forward with the windmill narrative, they're not going to talk about the whales that they're killing. He was talking about the gas or the electric heat, rather, and how it makes your skin itchy, and how all these policies basically have been terrible, and they haven't worked, Larry. You and I both know that.
What'd you say?
Ultimately, ultimately, these were experiments, and we can keep working on them. We can try to fine-tune them. We can try to make them better. I spent many of my days in the field doing stories on energy, windmills, solar, all of this stuff. We're just not there yet. We've seen it with the EVs. People didn't buy them. It's not something that worked. It cost us all a lot more. So people are ready to step back from that. And his tone today was really amazing because he's speaking to us like we're real. We've lived it the last 4 years. People are fed up with it. And it's none of kind of the amped up rhetoric that we used to hear from him. They're just like, you're not even in office right now and you're making sense. Get there, change it.
He's going to revoke almost all of it, everything he can. I think, Caroline, there's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if on day one, January 20th in the afternoon after he's sworn in, inaugurated, there's 100 executive orders out. Stuff on climate change, stuff on the border, stuff all over the place. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. And I don't know if your reporting is indicating any of that.
Yeah, he's absolutely going to clean house when it comes to these invasive regulations that are hurting so many Americans, Larry, except what he can't do is undo the sabotage of the Biden administration at the 11th hour with the green agenda. Like these restrictions on drilling, the ban on offshore drilling that Trump vows he's going to reverse. Well, there's just one problem with that. Just like how the current Biden administration sold off and auctioned off those border wall materials that were very expensive, which would make it so that Trump would have to restart the funding process, a very onerous process to get the border wall constructed. Same thing with this drilling restriction is he's probably going to have to go to Congress to get legislation passed to undo that. He can't just say, oh, get rid of that Biden order.
He will say that. That's what he's going to say.
Yeah.
Now, they may go to court and they may fight it out in court for the next 4 years, but that's life in the fast lane. I mean, I think you'll see it. Now I'll go to you, Mark, on this. He is not going to be stopped by some goofball law like in 1953, some goofball law that allows Biden to stop leasing and drilling in either the Atlantic or the Pacific basins. He'll never let that stand up. I had Ted Cruz on here last night. Ted said, you know, and he knows about constitutional law. He said Trump will make an executive order and he'll revoke it. And then, yeah, we'll fight it out in court. And by the time it's fought out in court, we'll be 3 presidents hence.
Well, hopefully he'll get the truth out there. You know, if you want to do something about climate change, the last people on earth that know how to fix it are politicians. They can't even fill potholes. And everything they've done, they're cheap, symbolic gestures. You know, a windmill runs on oil. They call it lubricant, but it's oil. The blades are the size of the Washington Monument. It's an environmental nightmare to get rid of them. Electric car. Electricity comes from coal. It's fossil fuel that powers an electric car. They're 4 or 5 times as heavy as a regular car. You'd have to replace every bridge in America if you went electric. So hopefully he'll stop this. And everybody that's done anything with windmills around the world is now in the process of taking them down. They don't work.
They do unbelievable harm everywhere they go. It was such a terrible idea. And by the way, to construct these windmill farms, massive amounts of carbon dioxide flow into the sky. Okay, I got another one. This one's even tougher. The last vestiges of weaponization and lawfare. Take a listen to this.
So this is deranged Jack Smith. So he dropped the lawsuits. He was told to by the DOJ because they had no lawsuit. They're not allowed to issue the report. So if they're not allowed to issue the report, that's the way it should be, because he was thrown off the case in disgrace. We have a judge in New York who's a very crooked judge. I'm under a gag order. Think of it. I'm the president of the United States, and I'm not allowed to speak. Why? Because if I did speak, people would understand the scam.
So, you know, kind of makes good point, don't you think? Makes a very good point.
I think he makes great points, and I think it's time to move on from all of this nonsense. What we've learned in the last 4 years is that it's a waste of time. It gets us nowhere. He has so much work to do, Larry, with respect to not only his policies, whether he's going to do it in one bill or two, the border and taxes, reversing all of these ridiculous things that Joe Biden has done, fixing our perception on the global stage, horrible foreign policy mistakes. We've got to move past Jack Smith. We've got to move past these bogus lawsuits. He's got to get to work, and he needs to be allowed to do that.
So, Caroline, it's interesting. Judge Eileen Cannon down in South Florida, who was the bane of Jack Smith in the first place, pulled the plug on him, and the Supreme Court went with her, not Smith. Okay, he shouldn't have been there in the first place. She's now saying you can't issue a report. Can't issue a report because you shouldn't have been there in the first place. So how can you issue a mythical report? I mean, there is a lot of logic to that. So is it going to hold up, I guess? That's what I'm saying. Because they want to get their last-minute digs in him with this stupid report. Right. But how can you make a report if you don't exist? That's legally. That's what I'm asking.
And to publish this report publicly would also violate the DOJ rules that say you cannot publish evidence about someone who is not charged. Donald Trump is not charged anymore. And Judge Cannon, as you said, already dismissed this indictment on the grounds that Jack Smith was disqualified and his appointment was unconstitutional. So the only reason to bring this report is to humiliate Trump as he enters office. It's to sully his good name, his reputation, and the American people rejected lawfare and this use of partisan weapons.
These guys, these left, they're fighting the last battle or the last war. It didn't amount to anything. If anything, it helped Trump in the presidential campaign, but they don't seem to have any self-examination in them, the Democratic left. Mark, he referred to Judge Merchant here in New York City as a corrupt judge. I don't know all that he means on this, but hasn't it been shown that it's a Merchant, if I get this right, Merchant's daughter is a Democratic operative, and among her projects was for money promoting this very trial, the Alvin Bragg trial in New York.
Yeah, raising money based on it. Our greatest legal expert, Alan Dershowitz, said, I've read this case 100 times. I cannot figure out what the crime is. Nobody in the history of the world has ever been charged with this. Paying money and non-disclosure, every company in the world does it. 30 million of them are signed every year. Nobody was ever charged with this. It's insane.
Just because they don't have good showers. That's whole crap.
And they're itchy.
They're itchy people, and they don't have good showers, and that explains a lot of it. And that's what Trump was trying to say. Big, beautiful showers are coming back. Mark Simone, thank you. Caroline Downey and Jackie DeAngelis. You can catch Jackie on The Big Money Show along with her co-host Brian Brenberg and Taylor Riggs, weekdays, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fabulous Fox Business. Thank you all.